Hi everyone, my name is Mitchell and today I'm going to be talking about capillary exchange. To begin, there are 4 different locations for fluid in our body. First is going to be that plasma throughout the blood vessels. So all that water is known as the plasma fluid. The next compartment is the interstitial space. This is also known as the tissue fluid. This compartment is going to be in between that blood capillary and the cell. And then there is also an intracellular fluid, which is any fluid that's inside of our cell. So that's this green fluid over here. And then lastly, a very small portion makes up the transcellular compartment. This compartment is any other fluid that does not fit in the other categories. Some examples of this are aqueous humor and vitreous humor, which is a fluid behind our eyes. There's also some fluid in our joints and even in our cerebral spinal fluid that makes up this transcellular fluid. About 2/3 of our water is stored intracellularly. So 2/3 of water, of our body water, is inside of those cells. While the interstitial fluid right here, the plasma fluid, and the transcellular fluid, all 3 of these make up the extracellular fluid. So in other words, any fluid that is not in the cell. An important concept to review to understand this capillary exchange is that water follows solutes. So remember, as we have more solutes, let's say in the interstitial space, so lots of solutes, this is going to cause water to follow and pull water out of that plasma into that interstitial space. So the more solutes we have in a given location, fluid is going to go follow those solutes. There are 4 main pressures that we're going to talk about today with the capillary exchange. So as you can see, this A stands for arterial side and then V is venous side. On the arterial side, it looks a little different than on the venous side. There's still going to be a push force and a pull force on both sides, but these pushes and pulls look a little different. So there are 4 main pressures that result in capillary exchange. On the arterial side of the capillary, the pressure is very high. So the blood hydrostatic pressure is responsible for pushing fluid in. So this is going to be our blood hydrostatic pressure. This is also known as our blood pressure. There's also going to be a force that's pulling. This is similar to the concept that we just talked about. So this is going to be tissue oncotic pressure. So tissue oncotic pressure is when there is more solutes in the tissue fluid. Remember, this is that interstitial fluid, also known as the tissue fluid. So in this given area, there are going to be more solutes causing water to follow, so causing fluid in the plasma to be pulled towards that interstitial space. So those are your 2 forces that are responsible on the arterial side for bringing water into that interstitial space. On the venous side, we're talking about fluid leaving that interstitial space. So the cells have now received nutrients from that interstitial space, but now we need to get rid of that waste. So on the venous side, there's going to be a push method. This is going to be that tissue hydrostatic pressure. So notice that anytime it's hydrostatic pressure, it is going to be a pushing force. Well, anytime it's oncotic, we're talking about the proteins. We're talking about that water follows solutes, therefore it's going to be that pulling method. So that pushing method, it's not as strong as the pull method on the venous side, but pulling is going to be that blood oncotic pressure. So this is where the cells have now used up most of the proteins that were delivered on the arterial side. So now there are proteins left over on the or in the plasma on the venous side. As these proteins accumulate, water follows those solutes, so water will be pulled back in on that venous side into the plasma. A common disorder that you will see frequently, especially throughout nursing and in the medical field, is edema. So edema is when there is an excess amount of fluid inside of this interstitial space. There are different levels of it, and those can vary, but there are many different ways for this to occur. As we've kind of talked about, blood pressure is a common one causing too much fluid to be pushed into that interstitial space. So as this blood hydrostatic pressure increases, also known as our blood pressure, as that pressure increases, more fluid will go into this interstitial space, causing more fluid and a buildup over time, leading to edema. Another common way for this to occur is with alcohol-dependent patients. This is because their liver is responsible for making proteins, so that protein synthesis occurs in the liver. With an injured liver, as seen in many alcohol-dependent patients, less proteins will be made, which decreases this right here, these blood oncotic pressure and the proteins to pull fluid back in. So as you have less proteins and decrease this number right here, there won't be as much of a pull method, so fluid will build up and accumulate inside this interstitial fluid. I hope this helps. I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck studying.